You know, as someone of advanced years, I love to meet kindred spirits. And I have, well, one, not the other, Chris Finn. He's been on here before. He's young and kind of brash a little bit, I'd call him. Kirk. But Kirk, you brand new to our show, man. Thanks for joining us. How are you?
Great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, well, look, I love the story. I'm looking so forward to sharing the story because there's so many of us that are in this place with, life and well-being in golf. And Chris, who's a noted physical trainer and mind in the industry, called you a ticking time bomb in the summary. So I'd like your response to that statement, please.
Well, I hope he's referring to my physical body and not my emotional state. And if we're talking about golf, then he's probably talking about both. But I think in this context, he's referring to my physical abilities versus my mental midget tree, which might be a bad word. So apologies.
Yeah, well, I was in the doctor earlier today and he said, well, look, good news is you're not a ticking time bomb. I'm like, okay, yeah, we good. Anyway, good to have you. Chris Finn, you've been with us before. Nice to see you again, man. How are you?
Good, Mark. Good to be back on. It's been too long, so excited to have Kurt here with us and tell the story.
You guys are busy bees. Quickly, for the folks who did not listen to the first show with you, reminder, folks, we are on YouTube as well. Just search and subscribe for Mark Immelman. Tell us about Par for Success, please.
Yeah, so we basically we do everything on the physical side of golf. So think of the injury prevention. We're physical therapists and rehab, but then also on the fitness side. So working with guys like Kirk and helping people to I guess in a way fight father time. And as we age, father time wants to take away some distance. Mobility tends to decrease, elasticity goes down, speed goes down. All these things tend to go the opposite direction that we want to, and so my philosophy has always been golf is hard enough, and if we can eliminate the question mark around the body, then let's do that. And so that's Par for Success. That's where we've really we have a massive research database, and our mission has been to figure out how to objectively and repeatedly give golfers, as much possible time as we can to play the game, because longevity is the goal.
Yeah, it truly is. And longevity, Kirk, was part of the goal with you as well. Now, your story to me is fascinating, that I know about it. But the first thing I want to kick off with is, look, as a golf teacher / announcer guy, I've given online golf instruction where someone sends a video of the swing and I analyze it and send it back. You worked with Chris and the guys at Par for Success in a remote capacity. Tell us, because I find this fascinating, to be able to work out, get yourself in better shape, improve your well-being, the whole thing, but you're doing it without the face-to-face interaction. Talk about that some.
I mean, I think ultimately COVID taught all of us that we can do things remotely. For me, I'm sort of a self-starter. I like to work out by myself, but it's harder when you're not around other people to keep you motivated. In Par for Success case, you have a coach assigned to you and you get to know that coach and you can communicate with them every day if you would like. But we have sort of regular updates and you feel this pressure to perform and at least, click the boxes that you actually did the workouts.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to have this guy on the other end, your coach telling you didn't do anything. And so don't expect any performance gains. So it's self-motivating because of that.
Yeah. I want to keep it with you just a second because in the emails when I was basically introduced to you, what Chris listed sounded like he was writing the stuff about me. The power numbers were low. Golly, I feel like I'm losing speed by the day right now at age 54. Hip mobility poor. I mean, I'm sitting on one of these rocking chairs to improve my hip mobility and my core strength. And then there was some lower back pain as well. With all the work you've done with these guys, you're on the up and up. So let's talk about that, please.
Well, let me go back to something that I found fascinating about their science and their data. Is we went through, before they knew anything about me, we went through my power numbers and mobility. And on the other side, the coach says, I bet your lower back flares up every, 6 to 9 months. I'm like, how did you know? I was like, the data says it. Like, this is obvious. And without ever seeing one of my golf swings, they already knew what the issues were. And that's actually really intrigued me to be like, wait a minute, they must know something. They're on to something. I've got to figure this out.
Hey, I guess that brings like a little bit of solace too, because I, I'm a golf teacher, as I mentioned. I travel a lot, just like you do with work. And then there's always this apprehension to go and work out with somebody because, we kind of athletes in the rearview mirror a little bit. And, my brain's writing checks, my body doesn't necessarily is able to cash anymore. So there's always like, well, I've got to perform kind of thing. But then you get with someone who just looks at your data and goes, hey, I bet you're struggling with this. And you're like, yeah, I kind of am. That sort of sets the relationship on the way, I'm sure, doesn't it?
Yeah, it builds trust. I mean, that's the key piece is like, I think as a plus handicapper, I don't like watching, I don't want a lot of tips from people because that just sets you down this path of always thinking about something new. And for me, the key to great golf is keeping it simple, stupid. If I can just repeat the same exact thing every time, I'm going to be a lot better than trying something new. Now,
Mhm.
that's the danger is you're always chasing something new because you're like, man, how do I get back to that moment when I was playing well? But in this case, the data and their approach to it gave me a lot of trust. And a year ago, before I found these guys and was recommended, my number one goal was not lower scores. It was understanding my body and understanding when things aren't going well, what is going on, and being able to diagnose swing flaws, which I've never been able to do because I never really understood. I mean, intellectually, the golf swing is this thing that you do so quickly that it's all subconscious. So moving from the intellectual to the subconscious is almost impossible because there's this physiological memory that needs to be established. Well, they already understood what my issues were, and that's really unlocked me understanding when I'm not hitting the ball well. I now can understand why that is. Before it was just a mystery. Do I need another lesson? Am my swing path? It was like, no, it's your body is just not there to be able to perform the way you're used to performing. And now that you know that, it makes things easier to diagnose and then fix
Yeah, I
ultimately.
guess you don't start traveling down rabbit holes you shouldn't when you have that knowledge. Chris, Kirk talked about, he hooked up with his personal instructor. You got a fleet of folks working for you. How many trainers do you have working for you right now?
Yeah, so it's been like Kirk said, I think obviously COVID was a catalyst for people to start doing stuff remotely, and so that's allowed us to help people all over the world. So we're up to almost like 30 coaches at this point around the world, and and to Kirk's point, the reason we're able to do it is because of the data and the way that we approach it, and being able to say, hey, these are the things we need to look at, and based on what we see, we can to Kirk's point, we're pretty good at quote unquote guessing, what we're going to see swing wise and body wise. And I just think that's, as somebody who loves the game of golf and also hates the game of golf at the same time, I think like all of us listening, right there, the game of golf can be so frustrating. And there's so many, like literally you can have the same feel today as you did yesterday. And it worked great yesterday and it does not work at all today. And to Kirk's point, knowing, hey, is that because my hip is tight, or is that because my shoulder's tight, or is that just a feel? Like it eliminates the whole variable of can I or can I not rotate? Is my body different today than it was yesterday? And if you can go in every day knowing, hey, my body's good to go today, I've hit my numbers are where they need to be and where I play well, then that just it removes that stressor, it removes that question mark, and then you can look at all the other areas. And to your guys' point, you go down the correct rabbit hole, as
Mm.
it were.
Okay, let's dive into one of those, Kirk. I on my social media account, if you look at the things I have saved from smart people like Chris Finn, there's hundreds of them. So I save them with all grand intention, and then I never really get back to them, and then I just read something else cool about someone else, and I've got all the stuff, but the getting to it, sadly, is waning here with yours truly. I'd love to know this. You kind of joked a little bit about saying, well, when I have my check-in with my trainer, I've got to make sure all my boxes are checked. There's
Mhm.
obviously a certain discipline required to go and say, okay, this is the work we've done in our session. This is what I'm responsible for the next 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever it is, days. I love to know about the discipline of this, because the truth is, even whether it's the golf swing or your body or whatever, there's a discipline involved to really making change.
Well, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Isn't that the key to to being a better golfer is discipline? For me, I broke a few ribs a few years ago surfing, and it was the peak of my golf capabilities. Like I've never played any better, and I never got back to that level until I understood that it wasn't, my swing path or whatever I thought it was. And it had a lot to my body's inability to repeat the same swing. And as a person that really, if you break down the game of golf, my favorite and most important aspect is ball striking.
Mhm.
Like if I'm having a great ball striking day and I can't make a putt, I'm happy.
Okay,
When
right.
I'm not hitting the ball very well with my irons, I'm frustrated. And what I didn't realize is it's my body's inabilities. I'm too tight. It's usually, I didn't realize. I had no clue why one day from the next was going to be so different. And then having a coach in this program, they've shown me sort of where I'm starting from
Mhm.
and where I need to be. So I got down to a whatever +2 or +3, and that's kind of where I am today. Um, and I have so much different freedom now, understanding that if I want to get even better, which not necessarily that's my goal, it's a body improvement aspect. And so it takes a lot of the witchcraft out of golf where it's like, hey, you need to swing more like Ben Hogan, you need to do this, you do that. For me, it's a continue to understand your body and your flexibility and your strength and focus. And so the coach is a weekly or bi-weekly reminder of, am I doing what I need to do to get to the next level? If I don't, I'm just not going to get there. And that's been the biggest aha in my years of golf is, wow, this is a body thing. This is a focus of discipline that I've never understood before, because it's not ball striking anymore. It's what happens before your ball striking.
I want to ask you this because I'm sort of getting from you that there's a goal setting element that is crucial to the success here. But it seems to me also, as I listen to you talking about, use the term witchcraft and then the understanding, and you sort of teasing us and dropping all these nuggets as if to say, well, there's this mind and body connection too, where I got my body better. It's like my mind began to kind of clear up. Am I right in my assessment over here?
Exactly. Like I had, a major winner and a bunch of our best players at my club sort of try to diagnose when I was not hitting it well.
Mhm.
And I had 5 guys that are all incredible golfers give me advice. And I said, all you guys, number one, I'm not going to listen to any of you because I have a coach and I trust them. But secondly, I intellectually understand what you're telling me. I physiological do not know how to replicate that idea. And so one of the things that reason why I have a coach and I trust them, and probably why, Mark, you're a great coach, is you know how to take this and get it into the body. Most people have no clue. Like that's why I don't give a lot of advice to people. It's like I have no idea what to tell you to be able to move it from here into your physical mechanics. I don't know how to do that. But when I was talking to one of Chris's guys, like their director, Josh, unbelievable. I had another breakthrough. Like I was telling him one of my swing flaws, and he's like, "Let me measure something on your shoulder mobility." And he's like, "Well, if your shoulder can't get back here, guess what your body's going to do? It's going to move towards the ball." I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like I thought it was my hip mobility. Now I'm like, "Wow!" Now I'm excited to like I need to start working on my shoulders because I took it for granted. I thought it was I could get back there. It's like, no, you're not even close to getting back there. So your body has to improvise to get there. I was like, no wonder. Like, that's a cool thing to know as a golfer that's trying to figure it out.
Yeah, it truly is. And Chris, this gets me thinking too, because I did I do some work with a company called Hack Motion, which got this very
Oh,
cool
yes.
wearing your wrist, right?
I have one.
Yeah, I'm sure you
Cool.
do. It sounds like you would. And so they said to me, "Hey, we need you to give golf tips." And so I'm like, "Sure." And then I'm listening to all these guys. They got doing these modules that you got to have your wrist go into flexion at the top, and I'm like, I can't get to where these guys are saying over here. So as long as I go from like negative something to slightly less negative something, I'm going in the right direction. And sometimes to the goal setting thing with Kirk, I feel like that's where the rubber doesn't necessarily meet the road, because people come to lessons or work with you where it's like, all right, I'm here, I've got to be there. And the gap between those two places, they lose the reality of where they are and just how they've got to stay their course. Are you getting where I'm going?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that was one of the early goals that I had with this when we started looking at research, and what we wanted to look at was how do we give guys like Kirk, and you and anyone listening, like, how do we give you real, like, how do we give you statistically, like, what is objective reality, right? I know even 10 years ago, everything was, hey, like, compared to Tiger Woods, you should be here. Compared to DJ, like your wrist, like to your point, like most of us can't do that stuff, right? And so it was, hey, for a 52-year-old guy, how do you compare to other guys in your age bracket? And I think that's the cool thing with the data that we've been able to do now that we got 15,000 guys in the database, is we can look at your age group. We can look at, what club head speed do you want to swing versus where are you currently? And what are the physical attributes that need to occur for you to get there and do it safely? And I think that's, to me, the big caveat. It's easy. I always joke, a monkey can get anybody faster. Take somebody with a brain to get somebody faster and do it safely so that they can do it for a lot of years to come. And I think for, what Kirk's saying about, with Josh and the shoulder needs to get here to, like, everybody's swing is different. The basics of what the body has to do in the golf swing don't change, right? Your shoulders have to rotate, your hips have to rotate, but based on your ratios and how tight or loose something is, or you get into the how elastic somebody is, or how strong is their lower body versus their upper body, they're going to drive different moves and different tendencies, and people have different superpowers in their golf swing, right? I mean, you look on tour, some guys, JT jumps off the ground, right? You look at and Ernie Els, he didn't look like he jumped off the ground, but he hit the ball pretty well, right? So yeah, guys have different strengths and different weaknesses on tour, and that's true with everybody listening on the amateur level too.
You're preaching, Reverend. Kirk, I guess that's the cool thing where they sort of meet you where you are and they keep the goals in front of you. I want to, because one of the summaries here was the lower back pain and then, of course, the hip mobility. And with my limited knowledge, I get to talk to smart folks like Chris on a weekly basis. I know that poor hip mobility is a function of poor hip strength. And I know that guys like you and me who travel a lot, and you business people and business women who's sitting at the desk for long periods of time, this is basically the perfect recipe for weak areas across your pelvis and your hips. So I'd like you to talk about that a little bit, because really getting that area improved, that's a tough road to hoe, isn't it?
Well, that's probably more of a Chris question. I think it is. I trust the process. I mean, they've given me a workout regimen, and we check our power and mobility numbers biweekly to figure out if we're on the path. And the good news is I'm actually improving and I'm on that path.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's sort of the positive reinforcement that I get, that if you put the work in, results are going to come out of that. And so it's been great. It's been great.
Okay, we'll follow up to that then, because I love the way that you say you're just trying to basically keep up with your pacer in terms of your goals. Is there a finish line for Kirk Coburn?
Well, I used to run 100-mile races in the mountains,
So there is a okay.
and there's some rules. That's probably why my hits are so tight. But there's a few rules that you learn along the way. One is if two people are running together, one is running too slow and someone's running too fast, usually. So it's mainly go at your own pace. But the second piece is you're not there for the finish, you're there for the journey. And golf is a game of imperfection. And Jackie Burke once told me, he's like, he's like, golf is a game of recreation. And then he looked out at champions in the back and said, go recreate. And I was like, wow, that sort of blew my mind. But that's part of why we play this game is there is no golf is a game of imperfection. So if you can look at it that way, you should be enjoying the journey. And I love this journey because now the pressure is off to find that perfect tip, to follow the process. You know things are getting better. You should naturally see improvements, and maybe that's more mental, but it actually, I believe it, and it works.
Yeah, well, what you're saying to me, I'm having epiphanies, if you will, too. Now, to change gears real fast, I got to ask, uh, of all the exercises you've done, and knowing Chris, I'm sure they don't overload you. I'm sure it's very pointed, and everything you're doing is calculated. But has there been an exercise that you've absolutely hated or dread doing? And has there been one that you kind of relish, if there is such a thing?
I'm
There's some
taking
exercises.
notes to pass this to the coach, but to your coach, Kirk.
There's some exercises that you just go, man, I don't understand what this does for me. Sure, there's one of those, but I'm not going to tell Chris what that is. There's some that just are not fun, but that's part of the, like, if you're going to get better, you just need to do it. I think the one I love the most is probably, it really is like a deadlift, but you're using barbells. I actually use, it's deadlifts. Like, I love that exercise. I mean, strengthens the lower back. It focuses me on trying to stand straight and have good form. And that's probably my favorite exercise, actually, which I never would have thought that in the past.
I've kept you for a long time. I'm thankful. I'm still fascinated at this whole remote thing. So it's as simple as you getting the workout, taking it to your local gym or whatever the case might be, going to do your thing, and then you go and you fill out the checklist afterwards, and then you do. How does the assessment work? Is my question then.
Well, from as a student perspective, they're measuring your mobility and your strength numbers. The mobility is done with the coach. Like, they're actually measuring like your shoulder mobility, your neck mobility, and they have metrics through the Zoom link to be able to measure, your percentage changes, which is quite fascinating. The power numbers are you do yourself, like how high can you jump, how far can you push a weighted medicine ball, and then you take it. They've given us a cool Rhapsodo, which kind of measures ball flight and distance. Thank you. That's cool device. And then you yourself measure swing speeds. So it's all that is sort of done by yourself, and you want to do it because you want to see your improvement.
Yeah, and apparently the swing speed with you was never really a challenge. It was more just the longevity. So my parting shot is, if you had to leave some advice to, people of your and my ilk that are now wanting to give themselves a few more years of, less pain, better golf, stuff like that, give us the marching orders. You've not been through this. What could you leave us with?
I mean, you have to, I would sign up for Par for Success, because anybody else, and this is not an advertisement, but it is they actually will communicate and talk you through why they're doing what they're doing and how it impacts you. And so there is no black box, which is great. And there are experts that are walking you through the process, because most of us amateurs, no matter what sport it is, we always overtrain. Professionals are the best in the world at knowing when they need to, like, okay, I'm at my peak, I got to stop. Amateurs, we blow right through that logic. Like, I want to hit it as hard as I can, so I'm just going to keep going, and then that's when your back throws out or whatever. I think with the big aha for me with them is, I've reached a swing speed that is way okay. It's good, and I don't have this goal to get faster. I have this goal to just keep moving towards that max swing speed with consistency.
Awesome. Hey, I'm sure folks, because we have a inquisitive audience, that's what makes them smart. I'm sure folks might have questions. Do you do social media? or anything where folks can hit you and comment or question?
I do, absolutely. Inspire Play Golf, our new golf channel that we're launching, or Kirk Coburn. They can find me, and I love talking to other golfers. I mean, that's part of the reason we play, is to meet other people,
So it's
or reach out to Chris and his company, because it's been kind of one of the coolest things I've seen in a long time in golf.
say that again. Inspire Play Golf. Is that the handle?
That's it.
Tremendous.
YouTube and Instagram.
And it's Kirk Coburn. Chris, you guys are pretty smart at what you do. I've had you on before. Every time I talk to you, there's better stuff happening. Share where folks can find Par 4 Success, please.
Yeah, so anybody listening can go to obviously any of the channels: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, just Par 4 Success, Par the number 4 Success. And then we also have our the home assessment, everything that Kirk's gone through. Anybody listening can check that out too at parforsuccess.com/on-the-mark.
Yeah, go check it out. I appreciate you, boys. Kirk, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Great seeing you.